Looking to increase your average price point but not unload your bank account to do it? Well, let's look into how to do that with some sweat equity instead of check equity. What's happening? I'm J.C. Agajanian, broker associate with the Whissel Realty Group at eXp, and today we are bringing you the breakdown, the recap from the Monday morning mastermind that takes place every week. Today we've got two great topics. First of all, let's talk about how to increase your average price point without just unloading a dump truck of cash on marketing spend, right? Let's figure out how we can do that with prospecting and with organic efforts. And the other topic we're going to cover today is creating a really fantastic seller experience so your clients are not just aware of what's happening in the process, but they're really happy with you and they want to tell their friends and family about you going forward. So let's get straight into it. The first topic we covered today surrounding the concept of increasing your average price point without breaking the bank. And before we get into various tips, techniques, and tools that you can use to do this, we have to pause and take a moment and think about the mindset behind it, because some people really get in their head about this whole process. It's really about, first of all, knowing yourself and realizing that you have the skills and capabilities of transacting on a higher price point just as well as you do with a lower one. The actual mechanics of the deal are not different. Stakes may be higher, but hopefully at this point you've gotten to a position where you know how to run a transaction well, and you've got to rest in that confidence. Secondly, let's keep the mindset and focus as far as what you're presenting to the world and to the prospect base, right? You don't have to go out and overhaul your brand. You don't need to give yourself a makeover. You don't need to change the clothes that you're wearing. This is truly about a mindset focused on business and how to work with clients in a healthy and productive way. This is not about worrying about how you look or what your brand looks. There were multiple examples of people upgrading their price point without doing anything to their physical appearance or to their company appearance. This is all about shifting your efforts and your focus and seeing the results come from that. Next, you've really got to know your market well. Where is the business coming from? Who are the people that live in this neighborhood that you want to focus on? What do they do for fun? Are they at the golf club? Do they drive fancy cars? Are they involved in car shows and meetups? Are they into horses? What are these people doing? One of the greatest ways you can get involved and increase your price point is just by meeting people who have a higher net worth. And how do you do that? You got to get belly to belly. You got to have conversations with people. You got to make new friends. But this is going to be done strategically, right? So maybe you join that membership that you hadn't thought of before. Maybe we had one example of an agent buying a really expensive car. He didn't do it with the intention of getting in with these people. That was his passion, and he had gotten to a point where he could afford it. But boy, that car paid off in droves for him. So figuring out who the people are, really on a personal level, understanding where they live and what they're doing, and then getting in those circles is going to be one of your top tips we give you as far as upgrading this price point. Having these initial meetings with people in a higher price point, we should have some extra value adds, especially if maybe you're working with a buyer instead of a seller who's coming in looking to purchase in this price point. Like, give them something that's going to have meaning to them. And a perfect example of this is maybe if you've got someone who's into golf, have a nice, concise list of all the various golf clubs and memberships that they could join. Have an understanding of how much it costs to join, what kind of people are in each individual club, and what benefits do the clubs offer for the memberships that they pay out. This is just one example of something that you can know this clientele likes to typically do this type of thing, and here's how I can make their life easier, especially if they're coming in from out of town. Another great tip, going back to the mindset, is to focus and deliberately exclude from your prospecting efforts properties that don't match this new goal of yours. We had another agent pop up and say, listen, I had literally eliminated from my database, as far as his prospecting dials, the phone calls, the marketing efforts that he's putting on, anything that didn't meet the new price point he was trying to level up at. He wouldn't even make the outgoing call, even if it was a decent seller lead. He would refer that off or give it to someone else to work, that was fine. But his new efforts were clearly focused on this higher price point, and those were the only people he was going to do his deliberate prospecting efforts and outreach towards. And if we're zeroed in, we've got our mindset right, these are the clients that we're going to be working with now, you're going to move in that direction in a hurry. And here's how I can make their life easier, especially if they're coming in from out of town. A great example of this is having made that decision, go out and purchase a phone list if you want. You know, this is something that is going to be very low dollar compared to a lot of the other marketing and things that you can do to show yourself into a luxury market, and just only focus on working this call list that happens to be in a high price point area. And you're going to work through that. You're not just going to call through it once. This is going to be your new farm list. This is going to be where your efforts, your outgoing calls are going to go to. You're just going to work on these areas that you've already pre-selected as meet the criteria that you now have in mind with your higher price point seller and buyer that you're working in. We don't only make phone calls, we do other things that don't cost money. One of them is open houses, right? So clearly what we're going to do is we're going to focus on open houses in areas that have the price point that you're targeting. And a great tip to go about this is to cozy up to maybe some of the older, more aged, experienced agents that have that great database and that reoccurring clientele that happen to be in that luxury market. But maybe they're just getting over it. Maybe they're old. Maybe they don't like doing open houses. Here you show up and say, listen, I am hungry. I'm ready to work. I would love to help you with any of these open houses that you don't feel like you'd really like to do. Multiple times heard of agents telling their clients that open houses are a waste of time and they're really just a way for agents to meet buyers and sellers. That may be part of the truth, but we know that extra exposure really does help sellers. So you can go in, you can fulfill that need for that person, and you can also catch a benefit from yourself by making relationships in this new neighborhood. By the way, if you don't have a complete system and strategy to make the most of every open house opportunity you've got, I actually recorded a whole video talking about just that. It can really help level up your game. We know that there is so much more to do with an open house than distribute a few signs and go sit there and wait for people to walk in the door. If you're interested in checking that video out, I've got it linked right here. Continuing on, prospecting efforts surrounding higher price points. Door knocking is a huge one. And if you're gonna focus on taking over a neighborhood or even just pushing in and gaining some sort of market share to this higher price point that's different than where the majority of your business has been, get accustomed to the idea of door knocking this area for a long period of time. Doing it once or twice, doing it for a month or two is not gonna pay off. You have to know in your mind, I'm committing to at least a year of this before really seeing some payoff. And it is a long haul. This is not a get rich quick scheme. It's a get rich slow scheme, but it will help you get rich if you stick to it and you get after it week in, week out. Now you've secured that higher price point, you've got listings in this desired area that you want to have. How are we going to go above and beyond? How are we going to have an amazing seller experience with our clients when we go forward? Well, that was the topic of our next conversation as we moved into on this Monday Morning Mastermind. First and foremost, we have to really set expectations well. We've got to clearly articulate what it is we're going to do to help the seller sell their home, to market it, but more importantly, we need to have them be well aware of all the steps that are going to lead up to our activation date, what's going to take place, the reason why we do open houses, and how we're going to update them and how frequently we're going to update them. We have to have a complete plan laid out, and then we have to truly follow through on that and not let things fall through the cracks as we move through the process. Part of this is creating an infographic. We've got one that we've used at the Whissel Realty group, and it's really just a seller roadmap. Part of this is truly having a complete infographic showing what the seller's roadmap looks like. We made one for our clients, and it's basically just all the different steps that are going to need to take place between getting the property to the market and closing escrow, and all the transaction coordination work, all the inspections, everything that takes place inside an escrow. And the great thing is it clearly spells it out. On top of that, we've created a whole video series that we send out periodically at each stage of the transaction so that they're constantly being informed and aware of where we're at now and what to expect coming next. Even made a hyperlink. it's short link for it. You can go to selling.jcagajanian.com and you can see the video series that we put out for our clients while they're in the middle of a transaction. On the same mentality of making sure they're aware of what's coming and what to expect, and then informed and updated as things come along, we like to help our clients know what's going to happen ahead of time when it comes to the inspection process. So we highly advise getting a pre-list home inspection. The way I explain it to my sellers is I would rather have a full understanding of what a third-party home inspector is going to say about the home, because to be honest, there's often surprises that even a homeowner doesn't know about their own home that appears when someone goes through it with a fine-tooth comb and looks at your property. So I would rather know ahead of time what's on the report, whether or not we feel like things need to be fixed or things can be deferred, and then go into a potential negotiation with a buyer with that full knowledge ahead of time, instead of moving into a contract and then having to react to new information in the middle of an escrow and negotiate accordingly there. I mean, if we can do anything to give our sellers that upper hand, we ought to, and this is just part of the process. Following through on your commitment to keep them updated and aware of what's going on above and beyond the pre-recorded videos like I just shared is an update, and we'll tell our clients, listen, in this market things are still hot, but not in every market. So we have to be prepared with a strategy and a template, a system to help our clients be aware of what's going on in the event that homes are not selling in a week or two like they are right now. We have to be prepared for markets where things take a month or 2 or 3 months to sell. And in that case, what we do is we tell them, listen, we're going to make sure no matter what happens, whether the news is good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to get you an update minimum every 2 weeks. And in this update, we have plenty of information. We're going to let them know the list price we're at. If it's different from the initial list price, we'll list that. We're going to let them know how many showings have come through. We're going to let them know how those showings stack up to the national averages, because showing time actually creates regional reports that we can give them and hyperlink in that same email. We're going to also give them market data that's going to help them understand which direction the market's going, how many properties are on, and this will be updated with every week that goes on so they know what's going on. We're also going to have specific feedback on our property, not just in the market in general, because we're going after the agents, the open houses. We want to know everything good, bad, and ugly about this home so that we can pass it on, because we always have to explain to the sellers that I've got my opinion of your property, you've got your opinion of your property, but in the end, what matters most is the open market, those buyers out there that are willing to write checks to own this property. And we need to know what those people feel. So we have a thorough feedback system. We've got a templated email. We plug in information. We give lots of information. And we don't just push the information over, but we also follow up with a customized video linked in that email with me saying, hey, this is what's going on. Break down, interpret that data for them, because it's not just our job to give them information, it's also our job to help them understand what this information means to them in their situation. And then we always follow it up with our recommendations. Based on what I've just explained here, my recommendation is, whatever the case may be, maybe we need to drop the price by $25K or whatever the case may be. But this is a way to educate, establish authority, give recommendation. And not only that, you're not on the phone with them waiting for some sort of emotional response to the recommendation. You've given the information for them to digest, you've given your recommendation for them to digest, and then get a response via email, or you set time to get on the phone and talk further about the information later. But in most cases, when you break it down this way, they're much more amenable, and they understand the reason why you're making the recommendation, and they understand you are doing work to get this property sold, and there's no accusatory language saying you're not doing anything, whatever the case, because people often get upset when you need to go ahead and make price reduction. Finally, we got some tips and recommendations from various agents on how they really love to take care of their clients when they're in the middle or towards the end of a transaction. One idea was to kick them some moving tickets. Say, listen, I know you're going to have to be out of the house all day for this open house. We're going to blow it out. We're going to have a great big event, but we need you gone. So maybe here's a go watch a movie, some movie tickets. Another idea that was brought up was to offer a final meal, especially for those clients who are leaving town. and they're not going to be here anymore going to their favorite spots? Like, let's find out what's one of their favorite restaurants that they will sorely miss when they're no longer in this town. Well, let's get them a nice little reservation or at least a gift card to go there and enjoy it before they move on. Another great idea was to offer something of value, just courtesy, something that we do with our team. So maybe that's a predetermined dollar amount that goes towards a handyman, or if they need some cleaning services set up, maybe that's something that you can add on as an offering that you might not normally provide to sellers. Celebrating contingency removals are always fun in the midst of a listing transaction, especially maybe when the appraisal is removed or when all contingencies are removed. Slide over there with some fancy cookies or something sweet and celebrate what's taken place. Another great idea is to cozy up to a local photographer that does really good work. Maybe it's the photographer that shoots your homes and they do side work, but offering a potential family portrait, doing something nice like that as a closing gift is a great way to really make a memory and tie that memory to you going forward. Maybe you even take one of those photos and you frame it and you include that as your closing gift. There's lots of things you can do, but the idea here is to be very client-centric. How can we make their lives easier? How can we make this transaction enjoyable? Because we know there's so much stress involved in a purchase or sale transaction. It's our job to not only shelter them from that stress, keep the transaction moving smoothly, but really figure out how we can make it enjoyable for them, because we know repeat and referral business is the lifeblood of what we do. That's all we got for today's Monday Morning Mastermind. I hope you've enjoyed what we had to say. More importantly, I hope you've taken something that you want to grab and implement into your business. We know action is way better than ideas. So send me a DM if you'd like to talk or have questions about any of this. Love to chat with you. Talk to you soon.